My name is Trinity Richards. I have 10 siblings. I'm one of 11. Yeah, we're an adoptive family. If you see my siblings, none of us look alike. The Lord's grown me in adaptability because I feel like things are constantly changing and you kind of just have to go with the flow. You just learn to. You can't ever do anything that's according to your own plan because there's too many people to be worried about yourself. But it's just so fun and lively, and I have so many friends because I have so many siblings. I think just being surrounded and loved by so many people is one of the largest rewards of being a part of a large family. So I actually grew up in the church. My parents actually met and were dating and married at Calvary Chapel, East Anaheim when it was still in Placentia. So I was always in the church, but I think one of the earliest memories I have is probably when I gave my life to the Lord. I was about 6 or 7, and I remember being in Sunday school, and I actually think I prayed with one of my teachers, and I remember telling my parents that, and they're like, "What? You didn't want us to do that with you?" But I was just so excited and ready to do that and make that decision. From then on, about when I was 11, I would say, we actually left Calvary Chapel, East Anaheim to go to a church that my dad's old high school buddy was starting up and planting. And I remember that was just a huge hit for me because we had moved away. We lived in Anaheim my whole life, and so we moved out to the IE, and I feel like I just left all of my friends and everything that was normal and comfortable to me, and I just started to kind of question what God was doing in that. It didn't make sense. It was all very upsetting to me because I was super young. And then around that time, we were in the process of adopting one of my sisters, and I actually found out that she passed away before she was born. And it was all in a matter of 2 years, all 3 of those things happening: moving, switching churches, and then losing my sister. And I just remember shaking my fists at the Lord a lot because I was young and I couldn't comprehend or understand what he was doing. I'd never lost a loved one before, and I was very angry with God. I still remained in the church, and I had questions for God, and I still had reservations with him, but I never walked away from him after all of that. I mean, I couldn't even drive. I was 13. And so I think the Lord was just tugging on my heart after having gone through all of that hardship and wrestling with God through a lot of things. I was beginning to have more curiosity about the goodness of God and why he was doing what he was doing, and trying to see it for more than just something that made me upset and angry. Around the time I got baptized, I think it was a year after we actually came back to Calvary Chapel, East Anaheim. When I came back, it was the summer retreat. It was the night of the afterglow. I was just really kind of coming to fruition with all the things I had wrestled through with the Lord, and finally ready to submit them to him. And I prayed it out loud. I almost felt this weight lift off of me, and then blanket from the Lord just cover and surround me. I just felt like I had an encounter with the Lord, or he just said, "Trinity, I've been here." And it was just cool because I kind of got to feel and experience the fact that his faithfulness and him remaining with me through all of that was never void. When I was 18, I got into a relationship, and from the get-go, and from what the guy that I was dating was telling me, was that he loved the Lord and that he was a Christian too. He grew up in the church, but it became really apparent to me that what he was saying wasn't in line with actuality, and then that actually kind of led me to kind of go off path and off track a little bit when I was in that relationship. I was in that relationship for about a year, and I was still in church, and I was still surrounded by godly people, and my family was speaking truth over me and kind of warning me about it, but I just chose to ignore them and ignore the warning signals and just all of the indicators that the Lord was giving me to not stay in that relationship, basically. But I did, and that was really hard. I was caught up in a lot. I was caught up in a lot of sin, and I was remaining in the church, and I was denying the things that were actually happening in the relationship. And then it took a year before leaving that relationship and recognizing all that I was denying and all that I was living in, while also trying to maintain a relationship with God and saying that I was following after God. That was probably one of the hardest things that I went through, was being in a relationship and loving somebody, but recognizing that they weren't on fire for the Lord, and that they didn't want Christ to also be at the center of the relationship, and just how easy it was to drift in that moment and in that season of my life, and to not see it for what it was. I think something I would say to myself now is the people that you look to for counsel and the people that you admire in regard to their faith and their walk with the Lord that speak things over you out of concern are speaking it out of love. And so you should probably pray about it. You should probably take into account what they're saying, because if what everybody else has to say is opposite of what you feel internally you want to do in a situation or a season of your life, you probably want to act on that. You probably want to pray about that, and you want to see why the Lord's putting those people and those conversations in your life. Don't allow yourself to think that you can do it without the help of community. Even if it's only one person, if there's only one person that you trust, I think that there's a lot of eye-opening that came to me in my relationship when I was in that season. Like I said earlier on, I was always known as like the quiet kid. Like anybody at church would probably be like shocked at the fact that I am like loud and bold. But I think I always mention this to people, but because I used to walk around so timid and so insecure and so like quietly and almost like in a shell, I think that something that the Lord is doing in my life is just revealing that in his strength and in like walking in obedience to him, that like there can be so much boldness and there could be so much freedom and so much joy. And so I feel like I'm just walking in so much joy in my relationships and in the way that I have encounters with people. I think the Lord is just giving me like exuberant joy almost that's like overflowing, which is really awesome. My word for the Lord recently has been just like thanking him for his kindness. He's been so kind to me. I've had so many moments in my life where I've just been angry, confused with, running from, running to, all of the things. And in all of it, he just remained, and he was still so kind to bless me and to meet with me and to forgive me and to love me. And even as I sit down to like share these stories, I am unpacking so much of what could have in my heart and in my mind been separating me from God, and how it didn't separate me from God, and how he was just steadfast, and how he was ever present, and he remained faithful, and he was always still in and a part of my life and my story. Truly, there have been so many things that have happened in my life, but never once did any of them separate me from the love of God. Never once did it diminish or remove his love from or for me, which is just so cool when you think about it, because I was so undeserving of his love so many times and he remained.